Welcome, welcome, welcome to this first video, which is key number 1 to embodying an awakened womb. So today we're going to talk about grounding with earth and why that is a foundational key first step. Before we get into that, I would like to introduce myself for those of you who are new to me. My name is Megan. I am a womb wisdom mentor. I offer one-on-one mentorship support and transformational group programs for women to powerfully anchor into their womb. It brings me so much joy to do this. It's part of my mission of how I show up with my greatest gifts to be of service to stewarding the new earth that we light workers and priestesses are all here to do and to serve. So, key number 1 is grounding with earth, strengthening your connection with earth, cultivating a connection with earth. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the why. Why would I be talking about this in terms of embodying an awakened womb? In terms of talking about supporting your womb awakening journey. When we anchor into the womb, and we decide to take that spiral descent down and into the body to come into the womb space, we can come up against some deep trauma and some deep shadows that have been lying dormant within the womb, within our subconscious, our entire lives. It carries the collective trauma of all women, of our past lives, of our ancestors. So, sometimes when we anchor into the womb, we can be confronted with a lot of pain. And it's not always this. Sometimes we anchor in and it's so beautiful and it's grounding and it feels amazing. But I do want you to know that at some point on your womb awakening journey, you will be confronted with some pain and with some trauma. And when that happens, it's absolutely fundamental and primary that you have first cultivated a connection and you've grounded into something fifth dimensional that can hold you, that can support you through it. So in, step number 1 is starting with earth, starting with the elements of earth. I'm going to talk a little bit into the principle of what Ishtadev means, which is a tantric or yogic principle, which means your unique face of God. When we look at tantric chakra psychology, the first chakra, Muladhara chakra, is the root. It's at our cervix in women. And this is the gateway into the first dimension. This is before we even incarnate into our physical bodies. The first chakra, we're not even in our bodies yet. We're not even in our bodies until we get to the second chakra, which is the home of Devi, home of goddess, home of your own abode, your own body. So first, the whole first gateway in this chakra psychology is to pass through the initiation of faith. And trust is to anchor into faith. And so in yoga, we call it your Ishtadev. And a really tangible place to start is earth. Earth, our mother. She's tangible, right? You can see the trees, you can see the soil, you can see the water. You can't see the air, but you know it's there. You can see the fire. And you can see how everything in your life, in some way or another, has somehow come from earth. Even you have come from earth. Your mother has come from earth. Her mother has come from earth. We've all come from the earth womb. So in terms of starting with this first initiatory gateway of anchoring into faith, a really great place to start is with earth, because we can see her. Most of us as women, as priestesses, as light workers, as healers are so reverential and devotional to earth. because she has provided our food, our shelter, our water, our homes. Everything that we have has come from her. So that's a great place to start. And she also has, Earth has this very exceptionally grounding frequency. The Schumann's resonance of Earth is very slow, very slow. And there's that downward magnetic gravitational pull to Earth, which is exceptionally grounding to any type of scattered energy or feelings of anxiousness or fear. So the opposite of faith in our root chakra is fear. So we feel fear, or we feel anxious, or we feel nervous, we ground down to earth. There is so much wisdom in touching your bare feet to the soil, to the belly of our earth mother. I imagine most of you here probably already have an incredible relationship with earth, already have a loving relationship, or spend time in earth, or have the intention to want to connect to earth deeper. So I'm going to deepen this and layer and offer that starting to cultivate connection with earth is primer. And then we start to develop a relationship with Ishtadev, which is your unique face of God or goddess. A reason why that is so important, my yoga teacher has said this to me, is like, when everything is falling apart, who are you going to anchor into? What are you going to anchor into? And so if you have a personal face of how you perceive God or goddess, then when stuff gets really hard, then you anchor into something that is of the fifth dimension, which is rooted in the foundation of unconditional love. So my personal Ishtadev is Mary Magdalene. She is the face of goddess who I have a daily relationship with. If I am really challenged, I go to her. I also go to other goddesses, and I do work with other goddesses, and I do work with other deities, and I do work with angels, and I do work with other mentors. She is the one who I always put my faith into. It's like if I were going to put all of my cards in one table, it would always be Mary Magdalene. And there's a lot of reason I have past life remembrance of being a priestess with her, being a priestess under her. And so this is something that in my soul memory, I associate trust, like primordial trust, not just trust in this lifetime, but within my soul memory. I have such deep faith in her that when things happen in this lifetime on this 3D realm, that I can go to her and I can anchor into her. And I know that whatever message or guidance that I receive from her is always going to be of the most highest and best good. And I want to re-emphasize this, that having an Ishtadev doesn't mean that if Mary Magdalene's your Ishtadev, that you can't work with Mother Mary, or you can't work with Isis, or you can't work with Bridget, or any other things. But this is just when you really do think of God, goddess, that it helps to put a personalized face of how you can conceptualize creation. Yes, creation is always bigger than our unique face of goddess, because when we think about the source of creation, that's a really big concept. It's really big. But this helps our third dimensional, like egoic selves, that we are multidimensional beings, but for our brain, for our mind, which is, yes, for our mind, it's tangible to put human characteristics as a face of goddess or God, so that when you need to anchor into support, when you're going in and you're experiencing any of the shadow or any of the trauma of the womb arising, that you have that personal face of goddess that you are going to anchor into for so much support. So I'd like to offer in that I know a lot of people who come to women's spirituality or goddess spirituality also come with some type of church wounding or some type of church father wounding. And so sometimes the invitation to explore having your personal Ishtadev can bring up this space of the wounding of the church father or the patriarchal church father, where perhaps in this lifetime, past lives, or in your ancestral memory, that you have experienced some really deep pain surrounding what a patriarchal figure or any type of religious figure has asserted on you about your relationship with God. That is all written, all embedded in you anchoring in and deepening in with an Ishtadev, even if your Ishtadev is not what this church wounding experience has to do with. A lot of times, in order to be able to actually surrender, trust, and anchor into faith with an Ishtadev, that you must first go through the shadow of any of the prior church wounding that you've received. I would also like to insert that this can especially be really true for women because of our experience of women's spirituality and basically the original womb religion that would have existed on earth being completely and intentionally destroyed for the last several thousands of years. So this patriarchal church father wound is really embedded within the psyche of all women. And then I want to add an additional layer on top of that. If you have had an experience in this lifetime where there has been any particular oppression or like your family or somebody was really trying to assert a particular belief system that had to do with God, that could have really formulated your relationship with creation and can create distortion in the Muladhara chakra, which can make it really challenging to overcome things like anxiety or stress. Another thing that I would like to layer on top of that is that, especially if you have indigenous roots, if you have indigenous ancestors, and I mainly can speak to North America because that's where I've lived, but I imagine it's probably all over the world. But if you have any type of indigenous roots, that the church father wound might be even more powerfully anchored within you because of the different missionaries that have gone in. I am completely forgetting what these schools are called right now, but where the indigenous peoples were intentionally put into these schools where their culture was totally wiped out. They could no longer have any of their old religion, and Catholicism or Christianity or some type of Christianity was asserted on to those groups, which has happened all over the world. That church wounding would be really powerfully anchored within your DNA, in that the trauma that your ancestors would have experienced of having to give up their entire cultural identity and having these patriarchal notions of what God is, and taking away from a much more earth-based spirituality and worldviews and ways of perceiving God, goddess, creation, source. So I just want to offer these to you, as you know that anchoring into earth is a really good start place. And then as you deepen into a relationship with an Ishtadev, I just want you to know that there can be some challenging initiations that start to unfold and to unravel because of these different woundings that are embedded within our DNA, embedded within our bones. And this is why in my Womb Awakening mentorship that I offer, that in the first session, it's all about unpacking Ishtadev. It's all about connecting and deepening the connection with earth, and then unwinding any of the church wounds or any wounding surrounding fear of actually surrendering and developing a relationship of faith and trust in source or creation. That's the first thing that we go into. And as I was saying, because then when you start to deepen and layer into your womb awakening journey, where you're starting to actually land in your body and you're starting to anchor into your womb. And as I was saying, because the womb is this open vessel and there is so much light within the womb, and there's such an intelligence about the womb, and it's also a place and a cavern where a lot of wounding is sitting. So when the wounding and the trauma gets triggered, then when everything falls apart, right? Because you're going to have the people in your life that you go to. You're going to have perhaps a beloved or a best friend or a mentor or a teacher or a grandparent or a friend, somebody that you love so deeply and so dearly. But everything in the third dimension can fall apart. Everything in the third dimension can completely disintegrate, including you. We are all going to die. So the key here is that when we're anchoring into faith, we're not putting all of our cards in something that's third dimensional, because if we put all of our faith and all of our trust, all of our coping mechanisms go to one person or to one thing, and then it's gone, then what do you have? What do you have? Everything's gone. What do you have? You have your Ishtadev, because they are eternal, they are endless, they are infinite, they are original source. And so that's where the Ishtadev is so fundamental. And this wounding of the patriarchal church father and has been so detrimental to society, because we have come into a place where we have become so disconnected from trusting and putting any type of faith into an original source energy because of this wounding that has happened. And what has happened is that it's kept us from actually being able to fully ground and connect with ourselves and with our power. So it's been a really big disservice in so many ways. And so, yes, I know that it can be a really big topic. And so I want to move a little bit into now of speaking into cultivating a connection with earth, because we've gone into, I expressed that connecting with earth is a really great place to anchor into, because earth is part of source, is part of goddess. But there's even more. So a really good place to start is just by developing a relationship, whatever your relationship is, but starting to develop a relationship with the elements. So, you know, all of the elements exist within our bodies, but also like seeing them mirrored in the environment, like go outside and start a garden, or go to the farmer's market and start touching the vegetables and buying from the farmers and talking to the farmers, or go to the park and put your hands on the trees and just put your ear and your heart up to the heartbeat, or go, you know, put your hands in sand, or go climb a mountain, or go swim in the lake. Whatever it is, like just getting outside in nature is probably the best, easiest way to start cultivating a relationship with earth. For those of us who live in cities and nature is not that easily accessible, or it's winter time, something really amazing to do is to have plants, is to bring, life into the home where you get to touch the soil and you get to tend to the growing of the life, is to start developing a relationship with herb allies. And because all of the different herbs, they contain and they relate to different elements. So then you get all of those elements in the house, in the home. Taking a bath or taking a shower can connect you to the element of water. Saying prayers to the cup of water that you drink. Saying blessings to the food that you're going to consume, for all of the things that you're putting into your body. Saying thanks and gratitude for all that you have, because as I was saying before, that all that you have, all that I have, all that we have has come from the belly of earth, everything. So that when you show gratitude for all that you have, your family, your friends, your food, your shelter, your water, your clothes, everything, your resources, everything is coming from earth. So when you show gratitude, you're strengthening that relationship with earth. And there's ways to connect to earth within your body, but at this step, we're not in our body yet. Right now, in this step, we're still in seeing things outside of ourselves, or anchoring into things that we can see that are outside of ourselves to support, to create this network of safety. And of course, earth is inside of us. Goddess Ishtadev, Mary Magdalene, is inside of us. Whoever your Ishtadev is inside of you too. And it's also really helpful when we're working in this first dimension, especially when we're working with the Muladhara chakra, the root chakra, that this is something that's also outside of us because we haven't come into the body yet. And there are so many ways to connect with earth, with goddess, within our own bodies, but that comes later in the experience of the womb awakening journey. So for now, that is what I'm going to leave you with in terms of this key number 1 to embodying an awakened womb, that I want to leave you with this. First, connect with earth. And then the invitation is to go deeper and to start to find who your Ishtadev is, and then cultivating a relationship with your Ishtadev too. So thank you so much for being here. It's been an honor, and I wish you so many blessings. And I will be back again for video number 2, in which I talk about landing in the body. And I'm really excited to start going into that content with you as well. So womb blessings on your womb awakening journey, and so much love.